This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
Today near England's ancient monolith at Stonehenge, an extraordinary phenomenon is occurring that defies all explanation. Bizarre, perfectly formed circles are appearing overnight in scores of wheat fields across the country. Experts have no idea how they have been formed, only that they seem to have no human or natural origin. Who or what is responsible for their creation? In a small town in Colorado, two friends vanished without a trace under the same bizarre circumstances, and oddly, these same events were foretold in a novel one was writing about the other. On a North Carolina highway, four men were stalked and driven off the road in a savage high-speed chase. What could have been the motive for this vicious hit-and-run killing? Also tonight, the heartwarming story of a reunion between a young woman and the loving family that she was separated from 13 years ago. On the very night of our broadcast, Sharon Stevens found her long-lost foster parents. Stonehenge, the great megalithic monument in southern England. Stonehenge is only one of hundreds of such monuments scattered throughout Britain. For centuries, these puzzling formations have baffled scientists and laymen alike. But recently, scientists have identified another phenomenon that may relate to the mysterious British monuments: wheat circles. This photograph was taken recently in England. It shows circles in wheat fields. Seems simple enough. But in fact, they are not simple at all. No one knows how these enigmatic circles got there. Molded gently from unbroken stalks of wheat and corn, they may just represent one of the most intriguing unsolved mysteries of the century. Nearly 95% of the circles occur within 30 miles of Stonehenge, and all the rest are near other stone monuments similar to Stonehenge. Are the circles caused by something we can explain, like whirlwinds? Or are they caused by something we cannot even begin to understand? Charity Down, a farm 2 hours' drive from London, England. In the early morning hours of June 15th, 1988, 37-year-old farmer Chris Wood slowly drove a tractor through one of his wheat fields. Just after sunrise, he saw something in the field that he had never seen before. He couldn't explain it. A huge circle had appeared in the wheat.
It's really amazing, you know, how the actual crop was laying on the ground, and it was so perfect, really.
The circle Chris Wood found that morning has never been explained. During the last 12 years, more than 750 large, perfectly symmetrical circles, some of them as big as 100 yards in diameter, have formed overnight in seemingly random fields of wheat, corn, and other crops. The question no one can answer is, how did the circles get there?
The first circle I found was in 1985, August the 3rd, at about 7 o'clock in the evening. It was the last sort of flight of the night, and we were flying around, and as the aircraft banked around to the right, I looked into the wingtip, and there below me was this beautiful quintuplet set, a large circle with 4 smaller ones around it. I marveled at this sight, and I questioned myself then, what on earth did that?
We were at harvesting. It was the last day of harvest. We went out there with the combines in the morning to cut our last field, and we come across this circle. There was no real damage as such. The corn was flattened down. It was just odd, strange.
Well, I've been here since October 1957, and the first circles we saw were, I would say, 72, 73. And that was a small circle, about 4 yards across. And then we saw another one the following year, about the same size. And as the years have gone on, we've seen them 12 yards across, with the small ones either side of them.
They vary in diameter. The smallest we've had would be about 5 meters. The largest would be, I suppose, 15 perhaps. They have a neat, perfect pattern from a center where it's flattened. The edges are very distinct.
The most wonderful thing about it is when you actually go out the night before to look for a circle and there's nothing there, it's just a lovely field of growing corn. And then the following morning, when you get up early in the morning in the first light of day, and suddenly there is the circle. You just can't believe it.
The circles are never cut. They are pressed down in a swirling pattern that runs both clockwise and counterclockwise. The crop is not damaged. It continues to grow and can be harvested normally. Strangely, no unusual footprints or tire tracks leading up to the circles have ever been found. Some circles occur with a smaller satellite circle. Others appear in groups of 3 or 4. Intricate symmetrical patterns like this one have 5 small circles arranged around the larger one in a cross pattern. Other circles are surrounded by concentric rings. Most amazing of all are the circles with both satellites and rings.
We've got a flare here, a radial flare here. And of course, by moving the axis, you've got the opposite coming in from the other end.
That's right, and that seems to be the heart of all these spirals, whether it's
Pat Delgado, an electromechanical design engineer, has written a book about the circles along with Colin Andrews. The two men have spent over a decade studying the phenomenon.
Ah, now it's beginning to show.
The number of circles are increasing dramatically. We were receiving reports in the order of 2 or 3 a year in the late 70s, 10, 11, 12, 15 or so in the early 80s. Then last year we saw a dramatic increase, 98 circles in 5 months of last summer. This year we have now got in southern England 270 formations, and we have fields in which we don't have 5 or 6, but 28 of these circles have appeared in a period of 4 or 5 weeks. They occur in all weather conditions. We have found no correlation in meteorological data at all to connect them with any particular meteorological weather condition or weather phenomenon.
We have invited many professional scientists of various disciplines to help us in this investigation, and quite rightly so, they start off with considering that it could be a hoax.
One of the scientists, respected astronomer Dr. Archibald Roy of Glasgow University in Scotland, began studying the circles in 1980.
No one really knows why these circles are appearing, and I think that the interesting thing is that no one theory so far seems to fit the bill. There are quite a number of them. There is the frankly unacceptable one of circles being formed by hundreds of hedgehogs all marching around in circles. Another one is that they are the footpad marks of flying saucers. Another is that they are due to the downdrafts of helicopters, or that they are caused by whirlwinds, or that they are hoaxes by human beings. There are so many of them. I think that it's very reasonable for a person to say, look, these are hoaxes because they look so artificial. But I don't think that the hoax theory can be held very strongly, because there are so many of these circles. Now in 8 or 9 years, I've logged about 700, 250 this year, this summer alone. The amount of time that will have to be spent by a very big team of people making those circles is getting quite enormous. I simply don't see the hoax theory as a very strong contender.
As part of a televised experiment, British military personnel attempted to create an artificial crop circle.
In all instances where something mechanical is used to flatten the crop, you will damage it. And we can walk into a circle and very, very quickly determine whether it's hoaxed, that is mechanically made, or it is a naturally created one. When we examine a naturally made circle, the portion of plant that just comes out of the ground must be softened, bent over, and then hardened up again. So not only is the mystery in the circle itself, but what is it that is softening the plant, bending it over, and then hardening up again? This is a real mystery.
If the circles are not a hoax, what is creating them? Several theories have been put forward and discarded. There is no evidence of a fungus or other natural organic cause. Aerial infrared photography has shown that there are no underground formations, neither sinkholes, nor rocks, nor foundations of ancient buildings that might create the patterns. Some scientists have theorized that whirlwind vortexes might create the circles, but other scientists, as well as farmers, believe that whirlwinds could not create such neat, punched-out shapes. Regardless of what causes the circles, they all seem to form overnight. Their appearance is often linked, after the fact, to sightings of bright lights in the night sky. One such sighting occurred on July 6, 1985, when Pat and Jack Collins were driving through a stretch of farmland near Stonehenge.
We'd been out for the evening, and on our way back, about 11 o'clock at night, we saw this circle with lights all the way around the edge.
He said, "Cool, look at that." I said, "Good gracious." I said, "Whatever can it be?" And so we said it couldn't be, you know, a flying saucer or anything, because, well, not knowing what one would look like. But I mean, it was, you know, our feelings that it could have been one.
Colin Andrews believes that the colored lights Jack and Pat saw in the night sky were related to two different sets of crop circles.
The same night as they saw this extraordinary clustering of lights over that site, a quintuplet set appeared in a field just a few miles to the east near Alresford. And the same kind of formation was found just a few days later in a very remote spot south of Andover. And the alignment of those two sites took us directly over the top of the Collins' particular sighting. Having said that, we haven't actually seen one of these this year.
In an attempt to find out how, in fact, a crop circle does form, 50 British scientists convened last summer for a surveillance operation.
We have been told so many times that all these circles are hoaxes. And so all we had to do was to find one circle created in circumstances where no human beings were around to disprove that theory. And so we set up a watch with electronic equipment, video cameras, light intensification, and so on, for 8 days and nights on a field where circles had appeared most years out of the past 8 or 9. And we hoped that a circle would appear under those circumstances. It didn't. And the fascinating thing to me is that during the 8 days of the watch on that field, not only did no circle appear in that field, but as far as we know, no circles appeared elsewhere in the south of England, although the 91 had appeared before the watch was set up. And since the watch has been set up, something like 150 have appeared. I think it's almost certain that whatever is creating the circles was aware of the watch. And that means that there must be some sort of intelligence at work. And of course, then you say, well, what is it? And I haven't the faintest idea.
That's a terrible noise, just as you stand in the centre.
You getting a noise there, Richard?
Very, very bad indeed.
Yeah.
Although no crop circles formed, the project did produce one significant finding.
Coming and going as you move.
Well, what happened was that Pat and myself were being interviewed in the largest circle we'd ever seen when the sound man detected an electronic warbling noise which came onto the sound equipment.
I know what it is, I can feel it. It's like a walk around the edge of it.
And Pat, who was stood just off of the centre of the formation inside the circle, could actually physically feel an energy field right alongside him.
Yeah, I can hear it. And I can feel it too.
When he stepped into that energy field, the noise picked right up, and when Pat stood out of the barrier, it diminished.
Out of it here.
Not quite, no.
Just a little bit, it's over here.
It was very extraordinary. It is very significant. We do now have a noise component associated with this extraordinary phenomenon.
Logic seems to yield no explanation for the crop circles. Is it possible that Stonehenge and the other concentric ring monuments scattered across Britain are related to an ancient appearance of the circles?
A lot of the circles appear in the vicinity of the great megalithic monuments of southern England. Now, if these circles have been appearing for, let's say, 5,000 years, then they would have been appearing in the wheat fields and cornfields of the megalithic farmers. What would they have made of them? Would they have said, these are signs from the gods? Perhaps we should build monuments which mimic these circles, and so they would build things like Stonehenge. It's an intriguing possibility. And so we badly need to know if these circles have been appearing earlier than, let's say, 10 years ago.
So far, 700 circles have appeared here in a triangle with Stonehenge roughly in the center. None of these circles is more than 30 miles from Stonehenge itself, and all of the British circles appear somewhere near a stone ring monument. There has to date been no photographic evidence of circles occurring outside Britain, but experts speculate that there might be crop circles in other countries.
We would ask any farmer, any landowner, any member of the public, military or otherwise, in America to report sightings of these extraordinary ground markings back to us. It is most important, it is most significant.
There's got to be an intelligently manipulated, inexplicable energy used here, and we don't know the first thing about it, but it's there.
I haven't the faintest idea what is causing these circles. I find them a most intriguing and entertaining mystery. If we don't know something, then it means that our model of reality, our model of the world, is inadequate. And so, as a scientist, I feel that they should be studied. In elucidating what is causing them, we must learn something, if only about the psychology of human beings, for example.
Since we originally broadcast this story, over 500 new circles have been discovered, not only in English wheat fields, but in crop fields in several other countries, including the United States. In some cases, the formations have grown more elaborate in design. One of the most interesting of the new formations was found last May in Wiltshire County in central England. For the first time, the mysterious circles were accompanied by large, deeply furrowed rectangles, creating a symmetrical design.
We're told by the British Museum that pictogram is the term that we should be using, and that was the first pictogram ever.
Last June, an even more elaborate formation appeared overnight in a field, which witnesses say was completely untouched the day before.
What we were looking at here was 3 pictograms giving us the largest formation ever seen anywhere in the world.
Due to the sheer size and elaborate design of this formation, Andrews is convinced that it is not man-made.
We were looking at a marking which was about 1/8 of a mile long. Now, if you consider that under controlled conditions, it takes a team of 12 people to create something like a 100-foot diameter circle, a straightforward, simple circle takes something like 6 hours for them to construct this. We were looking at a huge team of people working that night in the hours of darkness, which are only 7 hours at this time of the year, in a location which can be seen from vantage points all around. We had gamekeepers covering that area over on 4 farms. Nobody saw anything.
In an attempt to capture the creation of a circle on film, a surveillance project known as Operation Blackbird was organized this past July. For 3 weeks, scientists and other experts monitored one of the most active locations. Amazingly, 4 circles did form while cameras were rolling. Although 2 of the formations were dismissed as hoaxes, the other 2 appear to be legitimate.
We had 2 genuine circles appeared in front of the monitoring equipment, and the footage secured during those events RNA being enhanced and are being analysed.
This footage will not be released until the analysis is complete. Botanists recently studied the cellular structure of plant samples removed from inside the circles with plant samples found outside the formations. When scientists compared the samples, they were amazed at the difference. Samples taken from outside the circles had cloudy crystals in an erratic pattern. Plant samples taken from inside the formations had distinctively clearer crystals and a much more deliberate pattern.
I think the discrepancies are caused by some supernatural force which has been applied to that particular part of the ground, which produces these patterns.
We have here a structure of a plant which has changed. Human feet cannot do that. The downwash from a helicopter cannot do that, and nor can a stationary whirlwind. So we're looking here at major clues in the last few months of this year.
Perhaps the most amazing development in this case is the discovery of these mysterious circles outside of England.
We're picking up increases in the States, in Australia in particular, even one or two more in the Arctic Circle. It's most important now that researchers around the world group, regroup and coordinate our approach to this extraordinary but very exciting mystery.
Often an unexplained phenomenon is simply dismissed as a hoax or the product of someone's overactive imagination. But in the case of these crop circles, there is irrefutable physical evidence which suggests that some intelligence is at work. But who and why remains an unsolved mystery. In a moment, the story of a high-speed chase that left one man dead and 3 others badly injured. This accident was no accident. During the Christmas season of 1988, 4 men were driven off the road in a hit-and-run incident that occurred near Greensboro, North Carolina. One young man was dead, another maimed for life. Could this shocking incident have been motivated by racism? The victims were black and the assailant was white. No matter what the motive, police want to find the man responsible. It all began in the quiet afternoon of December 23rd, 1988. The time was 2 p.m. in a suburban neighborhood in Greensboro. 19-year-old Ken Dungy was picked up by 3 of his friends en route to do some last-minute Christmas shopping. The 4 young men planned on driving the hour-and-a-half trip to Raleigh on the I-40 highway. Behind the wheel of his father's Plymouth Duster was 17-year-old Laverne Allen.
It's a long drive.
Laverne had just received a scholarship to the Air Force Academy, fulfilling a lifelong dream.
You got the $15 you owe me?
Ken Dungy was a drafting and engineering student bound for college in the fall. 17-year-old Kenneth Newkirk was in the back seat. Kenneth had recently received a scholarship to a local college. Kenneth's cousin, 17-year-old DARIUS BANNERMAN, was a high school basketball star. On their way to the shopping mall, the 4 passed a car driven by Grady Alexander.
When they went by me, they were doing about 60, 65. They were carrying on like kids do, high school kids. They were just, you know, a lot of movement in the car. I looked over, and one of the boys saw me looking at him. He grinned and waved, and the car kept on going. After that, another car came up with me very fast. And as it got by me, I happened to look down at the license plate and I said, a redneck from Georgia. Because his hair looked like it's dirty and greasy and stringy. And he's probably doing 75 or 80.
Grady noticed that there were 2 people in this Monte Carlo.
That's right. You usually look good.
A few moments later, the occupants of the Plymouth noticed the blue car closing in at a high rate of speed.
Close, man. It's really close. Can you speed up, man? Can you speed up? What's this dude doing?
When I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw a car and he was so close to me, I could not see his front bumper. That's how close he was to me. At first, I just thought it was somebody just tailgating, just riding close.
Man, he's too close. He is too close.
Weary from basketball practice, Darius was napping in the front seat.
Yeah, he's real.
I was sleeping, and everyone in there was talking about, this guy is following us, At first, I didn't think anything of it, but the guy was extremely close to the point where, it was like right on our bumper.
Hey, man, hey, look, speed up, let him go, let him get over.
He bumped us, and it didn't seem as though this was all happening. It just seemed, it was like horror. Traffic was moving fast, and we speeded up to get away from the guy.
What's he doing, man? What's he doing? Why is somebody riding us that close?
The man driving the Monte Carlo, he had a look of, like we had done something personal to him. It was just a real, just crazy, like, look, like mad.
What are you trying to do, man?
It just looked like he wanted to hurt us.
Where'd he go? He's beside you.
A few minutes later, at 3:30, police and paramedics arrived at the accident site. They found a horrific scene. Laverne Allen was trapped in the car for half an hour. After being airlifted to a trauma center, his leg was amputated at the thigh. Ken Newkirk had suffered a fractured skull and a broken leg.
Tell me your name. What's your name? Darius?
Darius Bannerman had a broken wrist and facial injuries.
What's your last name, Darius? Can you tell me your last name?
Ken Dungy was pronounced dead at the scene.
Coming down this way, and they came over there.
Beth Villarquette was the first reporter on the scene. She spoke with witnesses who described the assault.
Both of the eyewitnesses said that after the black car went off the road, the Monte Carlo did pull over to the side.
Come on, let's go. Come on!
A man and a woman got out just for a moment and looked back, and then they just got back in the car and drove off. I believe he said they sped off as, not to get help or anything. He felt that they had left to get away.
I swear he laughed when he got in the car and left. I swear he did. Georgia plates, Georgia plates.
Real greasy blonde hair. Ugly dude.
Yeah.
Because of a lack of evidence, the police were reluctant to treat the incident as a crime, although the victims believed that it was a murder.
Well, when I think about the accident, it's a lot of different feelings. It's mainly anger because it shouldn't have happened, and it's frustration because the guy that was driving the Monte Carlo has not been found.
Unsolved Mysteries commissioned this composite of the suspect. The driver of the Monte Carlo appeared to be in his late 20s with a mustache and brown stringy hair. He was traveling with a woman in her mid-20s with blonde hair. The wanted vehicle is described as a light blue Monte Carlo with Georgia license plates.
I know how it happened, I know when it happened, but I don't know why it happened. Until I understand that, it will never be too fast.
In a moment, a heartwarming update and family reunion. For Sharon Stevens, childhood was a vicious cycle of loneliness and abuse. Her mother died when Sharon was just 3 months old, and Sharon continually suffered severe beatings at the hands of her alcoholic father. In 1959, Sharon was taken away from her father and later sent to live with foster parents Bill and Cynthia Zielinski.
You've had a big day, and I know it's...
At the Zielinski's home, Sharon experienced love and kindness for the first time.
They really knew how to parent, and they went all out, you know, to make me happy. I felt very special for one of the first times in my whole life. So I started to change in the right, respectful way. They taught me respect. They taught me how to, you know, respect other people and myself, and that they brought my self-esteem up, and because I had a very low self-esteem about myself.
But just 1 year after she arrived, Sharon's happy life with the Zielinskis came to an end. A court ordered that she be returned to her father. Sharon never lived with the Zielinskis again, but she will never forget how their love and understanding inspired her.
I know if it hadn't been for them, I probably would have been a child abuser, a drug addict, a prostitute. I feel I would have turned out very bad if it hadn't been for them.
We think a lot of you already.
I would like to be reunited with the Zielinskis, to tell them how much I appreciate what they've done for me in the past. And it's a dream, a hope, a fantasy, whatever you want to call it, but I've got to find these people and I've got to say thank you.
For 13 years, Sharon tried to find the Zielinskis, but was unable to locate them. And just minutes after her story aired, Sharon's search came to an end. Bill and Cynthia Zielinski were watching our broadcast and called our telecenter. We immediately put Sharon in contact with Bill and Cynthia, and they made arrangements for a reunion. On November 25th, Sharon arrived at the Zielinski home in Laguna Niguel, California, and met Bill and Cynthia for the first time in almost 30 years.
Hi, Sharon. Hi. Oh, Sharon.
Bill and Cynthia, who are now retired, were shocked when they saw Sharon's story.
Nice to see you. When you see your own life, or part of your life history unfolding on national television, your mind goes blank. You don't hear anything else that's going on, but your mind goes back to 30 years ago and all the memories that it brings back.
I was very optimistic that someone out there, their friends, relatives, neighbors, someone, if not their self, would see it. And I was very surprised that they themselves called in. And just got goosebumps when I found out, and I still get goosebumps.
Okay, everybody smile and give me a pretty pose.
For Sharon, the reunion with the Zielinskis was a long-awaited chance to say thank you for the inspiration and courage they gave her as a young girl.
Yeah, making a difference in somebody's life is nice. That's the only way to describe it. You feel like there was a reason for what happened. At the time, you don't know it, but now you realize there was a reason for what happened. 10 more minutes, right?
It's the only dream that I've ever had, is to find the Zielinski, and it feels great, and it's like a dream come true.
In a moment, the bizarre case of a writer whose last novel may have foretold his own disappearance. In the heart of the steep, majestic Colorado Rockies lies the tiny village of Silver Plume. Population, 130. On September the 7th, 1987, Tom Young closed up his bookshop on Silver Plume's Main Street and, along with his dog Gus, disappeared. 9 months later, a newcomer to Silver Plume, Keith Reinhardt, opened an antique shop at exactly the same Main Street location. On August the 7th, 1988, Keith Reinhardt closed up his shop for the day. Less than 2 hours later, Keith Reinhardt also disappeared. Not only had Tom Young and Keith Reinhardt rented the exact same space to run their shops, there were also other startling coincidences. Both men were in their late 40s, going through a sort of midlife crisis. Both firmly established an alibi before they disappeared, and one of them was writing a novel about the other. Could these two mysterious disappearances, less than a year apart, be connected? For 23 years, Keith Reinhardt worked as a sports reporter for a suburban Chicago newspaper. In 1988, Keith Reinhardt grew long hair and a beard. In June, he began a 3-month sabbatical in Silver Plume. Keith's goals were to get in shape by mountain climbing, to overcome his fear of heights, and to begin writing a novel. Keith's old friend Ted Parker ran a cafe in Silver Plume. During his sabbatical, Keith wanted to try running an antique shop geared towards summer tourists. If it was successful, he hoped that he and his wife could relocate there permanently.
Hey, Keith, you turkey. I was wondering when you'd show up.
Hey, old buddy, how you been?
Oh, man, it's good to see you.
Oh, you're looking great.
Keith Reinhardt and I grew up across the street from each other. We'd known each other about 40 years. And I would say that our relationship was similar to that of brothers.
Look at this. Huh? A heater for the cold nights up here. We're going to need it. We're going to need it.
Keith was apprehensive and excited, both about turning 50. He was here to finish out the last of his 40s in the way that he dreamed of.
He felt that very soon he would be starting to get old. He felt he was still young, but he didn't have much time for being young left.
You got enough stuff, man.
Oh, I know, Tim. I got another business over here. That's why I brought
He didn't want to be sitting in a rocking chair 10 years, 20 years from now saying, I should have done this, I should have done that. He wanted to do some things that he could do before he was too old to do them.
Look at these shots, man. These are the ones I took on the last
right,
trip,
that
man.
last hike.
9 months earlier, Keith's antique shop had been a bookstore. The proprietor was Tom Young. Tom had been renting the space for nearly a year when he and his dog Gus mysteriously disappeared. Tom Young had told people he was going on a European vacation, so 3 weeks went by before anyone suspected that Tom's absence was suspicious.
Yeah, but he wouldn't be in Europe after a year, would he? I think somebody kidnapped
Keith Reinhardt became obsessed by the unexplained disappearance.
him, murdered him, and dumped him down one of these mine shafts up here. You think so? Yeah.
He began talking to everyone in Silver Plume who had known Tom.
People do it every day.
Yeah, but he's a nice guy. I mean, you know.
Keith decided to base the novel he was planning to write on Tom Young. When he began the novel, Keith created a character named Guy Gypsum, who was a composite of himself and Tom Young. Sometimes it seemed hard for Keith to tell the difference.
The disappearance of Tom Young, my father, he was very, very into it. He was talking about it all the time. Writers like to live the story they're writing about, get a feel of it, so it's easier for them to write about it. Maybe my father, it's always possible, wanted to feel what it's like to, to disappear so he could write about it.
Hey, Vic, come on down here. I found something.
Yeah, what do you got?
Looks like
On July 31st, 1988, 10 months after Tom Young had disappeared, 2 hunters on Republican Mountain, just 1.5 miles outside Silver Plume, found the remains of Tom and his dog. Each had died from a bullet wound to the head.
They were up there exploring some territory for the bow hunting season, which was coming up, and they found his remains. Also found at the scene was a revolver. In subsequent investigation, we found out that Tom had purchased a gun approximately 4 days before he was last known to be in Silver Plume. The Tom Young case is closed, and it has been ruled a suicide, both by the coroner's office and by the Clear Creek County Sheriff's Department.
One week after Tom's body was found, Keith Reinhardt walked through Silver Plume in the middle of the afternoon, telling everyone he saw that he was going to climb to the top of nearby Pendleton Mountain. Most did not take him seriously. They knew he had a fear of heights and disliked climbing alone. At 4 p.m., Keith went to Ted Parker's cafe.
Oh, busy. Well, Parker, old buddy, how's it going? Hey, Keith, what's happening? I'm all right.
The day Keith disappeared, he was in the cafe and told me that he was going to make it to the top of the mountain.
I'm going to do it.
If I don't come back, call on the rescue. And he said that in jest, I felt. I have this picture of him pointing to the mountain and saying goodbye. That was the last time I saw him.
Keith Reinhardt was last sighted walking toward Pendleton Mountain. It was 4:30 in the afternoon, much too late to begin a difficult hike that would normally take 6 hours. Keith had no jacket, only a flannel shirt. He carried absolutely no supplies. That night, Keith Reinhardt did not return. The next day, helicopters were called out to search Pendleton Mountain. On the ground, more than 125 men and a dozen trained dogs combed the difficult terrain for 7 days.
The Reinhardt search was like looking for the proverbial needle in a haystack. This haystack is 3,000 vertical feet of 60-degree slope. This was about as difficult a search terrain as we cover. We were at a real disadvantage because Keith went into the mountains wearing no more than blue jeans and a flannel shirt and tennis shoes. He had no backpack, he had no equipment. A typical subject of a search will leave lots of clues for us to trace. Keith didn't leave many clues. He didn't have many with him to leave behind.
In 30 years of operation, the Colorado Alpine rescue teams have found every single person they searched for. Yet they could find no trace of Keith Reinhardt. Friends found a newspaper next to Keith's computer. The headline, Tom Young's body found. Still in the computer were these words, part of Keith's unfinished novel.
Guy Gypsum changed into some hiking boots and donned a heavy flannel shirt. He understood Tom now and his motivation. Guy closed the door, then walked off towards the lush, shadowless Colorado forest above.
Could these words imply that Keith Reinhardt, like Tom Young, had decided to take his own life?
I don't think Keith would have considered suicide as a solution to anything. He was a very optimistic, upbeat person. His advice to me was always positive mental attitude. So with that type of personality, the way I knew him to be, I do not think he would have committed suicide.
Another theory suggests that neither Tom Young nor Keith Reinhardt committed suicide, but instead were victims of foul play. First, ballistics could never prove that the bullet killing Tom Young came from his own gun. Second, both men rented exactly the same space to run their shops. They might both have come across information someone did not want them to have.
I think there's foul play involved. I do. I definitely think something's going on. He stumbled upon something.
They didn't know what happened to Tom until they found his body. They didn't know that he disappeared in the mountains. Same with my father. He's disappeared mysteriously. They have no idea what happened to him.
A final theory is that Keith Reinhardt planned his own disappearance.
I don't think that he would have left at 4 o'clock in the afternoon for a long-distance hike with a far destination in mind. At that time of the day, he would have gone for a walk up the mountain as far as he felt comfortable, and then turn around and come back down the mountain. What I find to be odd is that he did not take either one of his cameras with him, and he was in the habit of usually carrying a camera, especially in that scenery.
The little things that bother me are the facts that he was possibly at a midlife crisis. He was, at that particular moment in time, somewhat frustrated that he couldn't make it off his antique shop in Silver Plume. And he told so darn many people that he was going for a hike. And why somebody would go around town trying to make this point with so many people that he was going for a hike to the south of town, to the north of town, wherever, I'm going for a hike up the mountain. Why he made that point, I'm not sure. That doesn't set right. Apparently he had vertigo, some fear of heights, and now suddenly this man is talking about climbing to the top of a mountain all by himself. That isn't consistent. This is 1 week after Tom Young's remains were found. He knows now, as everybody in Silver Plume knew, that Tom Young laid out a bit of a false trail. And I just have to wonder in the back of my mind if Keith did the same.
I don't think that Keith would be the type of person to walk away from his whole entire life and leave it behind him. He loved the people in his life. He loved keeping in touch with them. And I don't think he could have left them all behind him. I would like to hope he's still alive and that whatever reasons he may have had for disappearing, we could work that out. I'd like to think that he would still be alive somewhere. But realistically, I'm not sure. I have to also be prepared for the eventuality that he's not.
Keith Reinhardt turned 51 on September 10th, 1989. He is 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighs 210 pounds. Keith Reinhardt wears glasses only for reading and has blue eyes. Tonight we have seen 4 stories without endings, 4 stories in which ordinary people have been thrust into the center of an unsolved mystery. Perhaps someone tonight can help them. Perhaps they were watching. Perhaps it's you.